are live.
What's up?
Hey guys, Karen Hutton, Abe Blair. We are live on Instagram. We're live from Truckee, California in the Alpenglow Gallery, which Abe is a co-owner.
Exciting.
Yeah, I know. So we're going to talk about, oh my goodness, we're going to talk about inspiration. We're going to talk about, we were just talking a little bit before we started about what's exciting now and what's inspiring now, because now is where this whole sport takes place, right? Doesn't happen in the past.
No.
Doesn't happen in the future. Happens right now. So how can we be more present, purposeful, bringing more of ourselves to our work, and how does that work? So Abe is, if you don't know Abe, abeblair.com, he is the most phenomenal photographer, landscape,
Thank you.
award-winning, he makes his living selling fine artwork. He's a friend of mine. We always make the joke, well, we'll tell that story first. I always say I met Abe when I saved his life.
Yeah, that's how I tell it too.
Pretty much, yeah. So I wanted to introduce you to him. Friday mornings, for those of you who are new, Friday mornings are Friday mornings for photographers. And we talk about photography, inspiration. Sometimes I show post-processing. I've talked about purpose. I have friends over. I go places because I love field trips. So I'm calling it field trip Friday today. So hi everybody, coming on in. You can holler where you're coming from. They come from all over the world.
Awesome. You've got waves going.
I know.
It's a steady stream.
Yeah, I know. It's super awesome. So where's everybody from? Drop it in here. I'm going to keep watching. I have to sort of lean over. Abe and I are working on our not slouching. So we're going to try to sit it straight.
Too many years of carrying camera bags.
Right?
Yeah.
I know.
Luckily, they're getting lighter as we get older, thankfully.
Thank God. Timing is everything. I swear to God. So I want to start with the story, which I've told before, but now he's here. So we can talk about how we met. We knew of each other from the world of photography, but then I saved his life. How did that happen? How did that happen?
I think it was probably sometime in January. That was a cold, dry winter.
It was like 15 degrees.
Super cold, not
really
much
cold.
snow.
Yeah.
And went out to a really popular common sunset area, and I was going to shoot up on the top ridge, but it was so windy and cold, no way. So I went down to that beach.
Yeah.
And once I got down there, I remember looking up and I saw what ended up being you up there. And I felt so sorry for you. It's like, oh, that poor photographer. If you come down here, there's room to share and it's way warmer.
I love those moments because it's like Titanic, where I'm on top of the world and I could fly. I'm adjusting this because I'm having issues with the way.
Yeah, and major tripod vibration.
I know, sorry. I always like to try to make you a little bit sick because, why not?
That was a cold day.
That was a really cold day. So then sunset happened. It was done. We were going to our cars.
Yeah, just that little 2-car parking spot there. So I jumped in my car and, it's all layered up.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of de-layer, but the car started and then took a few layers off, jumped out of the car to move some gear around. And my car, while it was running with the key in the ignition, locked me
itself.
in one of these smart cars. And luckily I had my phone, and luckily even more, you were there. So instantly I called AAA and walked over to your car, knocked on the window, and very humbly was like, I locked myself out of the car. AAA is maybe on the way.
Scary.
Any chance I could hang out in your heated car? Because I was at that point down to a jeans and a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And it was in the teens.
And it was 15. I remember looking, it was 15. It's funny because I had this funny feeling when I was watching you, because we were getting in our separate cars, getting ready to go. And I packed my stuff and I was getting my car warm, but I'm watching him. I don't know why. I just had this feeling I wanted to make sure you were set and we were both going, we were leaving at the same time because of the weather.
Yeah, well, I can't thank you enough
it was. That. And then we went and had coffee because that AAA took a while. So we went to Starbucks, got a cup of coffee.
Yeah. Turned out we knew a bunch of the same people in the industry and have been good friends ever since.
Yeah, it's so great. And we're so busy, we hardly ever get to see each other. So I called him up and I said, hey, come on my live. Plus, you've now, those of you who follow me on Fridays, you've met Justin Majeski, because we did, he's the other co-owner. Well, there's 3 of them, but Justin is my friend who has shot all my Fujifilm videos and is also co-owner of this gallery. So we've been here a few times because it's so exciting and it's so I don't know, it's so dreams come true, right? And I love to share those stories. And so, Abe, you were talking about, so you've done gallery work before, and so you have some experience. How is this different?
I mean, having a true stake in the game, like, and an ownership, it's a big load on the shoulders, but I'm seeing how much more gratifying it is. Being on the sales floor, talking about my art as an owner, rather than like, hey, guest artist for the weekend, come down, meet me. There's just a lot more. I feel it feels a lot more real every day.
So a lot of people, like, I'm going to ask this on behalf of all of you who wonder how you would do this. How do you, because I've had people ask me this, how do you talk about your art? Somebody comes and looks at it, they're standing there, and you talk about your art. How do you open that conversation?
Well, I mean, generally people always ask, are you the artist? And, yes, I am. And then, which images are yours? And I, pointed out, we don't segregate our gallery here, which is really fun. Tremendous amount of confidence in my other partner's work. So we just put the art around as we want. And we notice people have a tendency to gravitate towards one of our styles. But yeah, I mean, I just introduced myself. Yeah, I take pictures, and this line seems so cheesy, but is so true up here, is that I'm just blessed to have a gorgeous backyard to work in. I mean, a 2,600 square foot gallery full of art that is photographed within the hour of the walls. I don't know very many other galleries that have those
very
luxuries.
Unique that way.
And
yeah.
I think that's kind of the stepping stone to the introduction of the art, is that, yeah, I photographed it, it's here, it's super local, and yeah, we're just really lucky.
So do you find so far, well, you've been in other galleries, so you've seen the trend, whatever it is. Do you find that most people want a piece? I'm looking at a picture of bonsai rock over here. I was just going to say a piece of the rock, not meaning literally, but want a piece of the rock to take home? Are they visitors? Are they locals? Are they like, what's the kind of the motivating?
I think it's multifaceted. I mean, there's 2 or 3, I'd say, demographics that we have. You've got your well out of town, out of state visitors. And I would say, they want to bring something home that reminds them of what they saw.
Right.
And generally just that classic blue gorgeousness that we have here. And we have our second homeowners who, regionally know the area, and they have a much wider spectrum of what they usually purchase. Yosemite and just California in general.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
With a splash of just that Truckee pride.
Right.
So I'm definitely noticing, just in the 40 days we've been open, how passionate people are about this town specifically. Like they're visiting, and oh my gosh, I haven't been here in 10 years or 15 years, and it's just so cute and quaint, and people are traveling from other towns in the region to spend a day in Truckee, which I didn't realize fully.
Yeah. It's interesting because I lived here for 30 years, and for a long course, when I first moved here, it definitely was not as nice and quaint and comfy as it is now. It was definitely way more old school mountain town. So it's changed a lot, but it is a sweet, sweet town. And so it's interesting. So when you're here, you start to get that, like, and I'm saying this not just about Truckee, but there's a reason for all of you out there that I'm pointing this out, that when you live a place like this, or like wherever it is that you happen to live, you start to see it, you start to feel its heartbeat, and you start to sense its different moods, and its different, things that go on, and you start finding yourself telling its story. And that was what I found. And I started to have over the years people commenting, oh, I used to go to Truckee and it wasn't a very pretty town. I never thought of it as a cute, pretty town, but I see it through your eyes, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. Learning how to change your perspective, or sometimes zoom in your perspective a little bit. That's what I've learned through actually one of my partners, Doug's work here locally. And your work has inspired me as well, and Scott Thompson, in the sense of like, wow, these images exist here in the town. Why haven't I seen them? And I'm just too busy rushing around trying to get to the big lake or the other spot.
Exactly. And lesson for life number 345, you're always looking, oh, there's something better over there, when in fact, right here, what do you love? That's why I always start any of my retreats, any of my teaching or whatever with, from the point of view of finding your signature work, finding your artistic voice, what do you love? What floats your boat? What makes you go, oh, right? And then form yourself around that. And when you're in a place, you can start to create a body of work about that place from a whole different point of view that way. Just a tip for the masses.
So true.
Yeah.
Tahoe in general, that's been my attachment for the last just a little over a decade.
Yeah.
But now with the Truckee-based gallery, Truckee is kind of this new hyper-focused area for me to.
And it's sort of like Truckee's coming into its own too. I mean, it wasn't.
As you were saying, it wasn't. I'd say there's just the right amount of polish on the town right now with the modernization and the growth that we're seeing. So we're in a really cool time. I'm sure.
Yeah, we could
in
go.
10 years we may look back and go, wow, that was
one
cool.
thing I've noticed over the years is, so when I moved in, there was at that time the old locals going, it's gotten too big for me, I'm out of here, and they would move to Lower Slobovia somewhere. And then I don't know if it's 10 or 15 years, there's a cyclical thing that happens where the previous guard goes, this is too much, it's become blah, whatever it is, and they leave. And then now we love it, and it's going to evolve into its next thing because it is very desirable and it's fabulous. I just love it. This was taken from Truckee. What's the name of this one?
This is Thunderstruck.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see that. In fact, I'm gonna show you that there is a lightning strike. Of course, there's lights
in the corner.
From the ceiling.
There's a lightning strike over there.
Yeah, that's one of Abe's, and at the same time a rainbow. I love this because this is one of my favorite areas around here.
I think we almost did this meeting there today. I almost called you, I think, with that fog layer that's going on today.
Yeah.
I was about to call the audible and say, hey, let's do this on site.
Yeah, except there's no cell signal there, so we would have phoned it in later.
Yeah.
But I almost probably would have done it. I would have put a message up going, sorry.
We could have done it right there, right with those trees in the background.
Yeah. That's a favorite spot. And then it's funny because it's similar to up here on the summit as well.
Yeah.
So there's a real continuity to this whole area. Are we close enough? Move closer.
Which I've been right preemptively ahead before opening the gallery. Really spent a lot of time up at Donner Pass, and again, I've been up there for years, but I was always looking for that big shot.
Right.
The classic postcard. And now with the intimacy of Truckee and people's knowledge here, it was really fun to really start hiking around and
finding the little.
I fell in love with a handful of trees and fresher compositions.
Yeah, I did the same thing. Fall in love with trees. Like there's this one up there. I've been watching it grow. So I've photographed it over the years, and now it's an adolescent, and it's funny because you're like, oh, you're in that awkward adolescent phase. But it's still beautiful. So okay. Oh, there's so many things are hitting my mind all at once with all of this, and I want to do more of this kind of thing. This is really great. So, this is a good question. There's so much about right now for you that is exciting, right? The new gallery, the change, being in Truckee, you've been here a couple of years, but this is almost like, in some ways, this is like moving here for the first time.
It's a reintroduction, I feel like, before I was a renter and I tested the waters with my first gallery, but everything was so kind of just not secure. It was just sort of sending the feelers out across the board.
Right.
Whereas now, being a homeowner and a dad and an owner of a gallery, it's just a lot more real, a lot more big.
Yeah, a lot.
Feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I want to talk about that, like having a family and just how all of that, factors in. I have questions, but what's exciting now? Like right now, as a result of these changes, now you come to the gallery every day. What's new about that? What's exciting now about it?
I mean, kind of what I mentioned before, having a stake in the game with the ownership here, I have so much more pride and excitement to be down here every day. And I find myself, even on my pseudo days off that I'm not scheduled to be on the floor, I'm still coming, hanging out with Justin or Doug for a few hours, talking with people.
Yeah.
Having the confidence with the partner's art and my art, all in such a huge, big showcase. This is the biggest gallery I've been in square footage.
It's the biggest one in Truckee. Or
In
even Tahoe,
in Tahoe,
period.
yeah,
Yeah.
2,500 square feet. So it's really cool to finally see my art sitting along other artists' art that I respect in the right fashion, big and it's just, I think this is, when I first moved here 12 years ago, I took my wife here the very first week we moved to Truckee, to this very gallery. When it was
Wow.
owned by Elizabeth and Olaf Carmel.
Right.
Who I was fans of, this is pre-social media. This is when I saw her name in the magazines.
Right.
And was like, wow, this is amazing work. And we came here and I said, someday I want a gallery like this, or better yet, even this exact one. So
See?
I planted that seed 12 years ago and manifested it. It took a long time, but I'm a huge believer in manifestation.
Tip number 258, dream big and never give up on your dreams, ever.
Yeah. And I, for years, said, no, I'm never doing a gallery again. I like representation. And then in like less than 10 days time, it went from, I have no partners, no gallery, to I have partners and we're signing a lease, to this gigantic situation. And yeah, and it's been refreshing, exciting, but
Yeah.
really just like invigorating in the sense of like
I know a lot
doing
of,
it, like you said, dreams.
Yeah, dreams. I mean, it's so important. A lot of people, just the times and just being the way it is right now. It's a lot of people have given up on their dreams. They don't feel as positive. They feel a little hesitant or scared, and I see it as an opportunity to, be part of the solution, be part of the wave of light and positivity and what is possible, not only still, but always, even more importantly now. So I feel like this whole situation and you are kind of like a beacon in that statement, in that sort of statement for humanity. And I think that's a really important facet of all this to own.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a kind of a responsibility in a way, but you've already done it, so it's not like it's any kind of pressure. You're just living up to your potential, and we can all do that. How would you recommend if somebody wanted to do something like this, or just even print their work or have it hanging somewhere? I mean, I know everybody always asks that question, but with what you know now, including the dream part and including the inner part, what would you say to somebody?
I mean, I think it's, number one is just to be true to yourself as an artist, but then the exact opposite in the sense of being true to yourself and juggling the artistic desire with the reality of business.
Right. Learn business.
Yeah. So people always ask, did you go to art school or oh, my teenager is really into art and they want to go to an art school, and I always, as politely as possible, suggest business school.
Yeah.
I don't think school can teach you to be an artist, but
They don't do business at all.
I wish in the 25 years that I've been a professional photographer and artist that I would have had a better foundation of profit and
Right.
margins and long-term sustainability in terms of how to price yourself and how to market yourself.
Don't you find that, because some people feel like if you do that, then you're going to compromise your vision, but I don't particularly feel that way, but before I say what I think, like, how do you feel about that?
I don't know if I would use the word compromise, but I'll tell you that where I sit and stand today on a lot of levels in this profession is not how I envisioned when I started.
How so?
Well, and again, this is where business comes in. I envisioned as a photographer, like I would have preferred to operate more like a painter, make one piece, sell it, pay some bills, and go on to the next piece.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't work in the reality of business for me.
Well, it's not today anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I think it might have at one time.
I think so. And maybe when I pass away, my art will accelerate that way for my kids and next generations. But so, that was, and I knew some artists who had achieved that, but through a 30 or 40 year long career. So adjusting to the perceptions of what I thought would work or what I wanted to be or do versus what the reality of the world and business allowed. And then just kind of always pushing that yin yang.
Right. And don't you find that, so I was thinking earlier, I said, some artists are afraid it'll compromise their vision. I feel as though, okay, a couple things. One is, do you find, I think this is true and I'm curious to know what you think, that you may find that like photographers tend to love more than one thing, right? So we have many things we love to photograph and ways we like to photograph. And then more often than not, we end up with so much work, you don't know how to tailor it down. So learning business allows you to figure out what is desired out of all the stuff that you photograph so that you can tailor what you're offering. So like, let's say, and then people are like, well, then I'm going to get stereotyped. No, because maybe you sell a lot of one type, that affords you then the opportunity to go and continue to develop
the passion projects,
and the other stuff. So it's really learning how to go, all right, I love this, but the audience loves this. So fine, I'll provide lots of that because I still love it, because it still comes out of the same vat of I love it. And then, then I'll tailor it from there. And I say the same thing even to my commercial photographer people, that when you're hired as a commercial photographer, you're hired for your vision, for what you love about what you're seeing. And if you take on a client, you got to find something that you love about it. I know that from acting. I know that from voiceover, from everything I've ever done in the performing arts. You got to find that core of truth that you can get behind and put your voice behind. Otherwise it won't ring true.
I like that term, the core of truth.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would be a good way of describing what I've learned or evolved is balancing that core truth of being a professional artisan, which is, a businessman.
Right. And it's also evident in your work, because that's one of the things I've always loved about your work, is there is a core of truth to it. You have a particular, some people would say a style, and I found myself saying that at first too, and I went, yeah, but it reflects what he feels, how he feels about what he's photographing, and that core of truth of the soul connection to what you're photographing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what you're photographing, it's evident in everything.
Yeah.
Which is why I always start people with, what do you love? Because that then becomes your core of truth, so that no matter where you go from there, it's always ringing true to who you are. And that's really, as an artist, that's really important.
I think for me, and my core truth is just photography, camera in hand. Yeah, there are certain subject matters, locations, places that I would rather photograph, but a camera in hand and calling that work is 10 times better than any other work or job environment I would rather be in. So, and through my years, I have photographed a tremendous amount of subjects, some less exciting than others, but every day was better than being in the cubicle or whatnot. So,
right. And to find ways, and so understanding business and having that acumen then helps you make all those efforts worthwhile sooner than later. So that, I thought that was interesting and a worthwhile part of the conversation for today. I also want to, so you're a dad and a husband, and you have in fact, we were just talking about what's on, we're doing this an hour early than normal, because he's got to go pick up his kids.
Parent-teacher conferences this week, so it's half days all this week.
Right.
So and classically, as it just seems that Mother Nature put on quite the show of light the last couple of days.
I almost bailed on him this morning because driving up here, it was like,
busy with family.
Exactly.
So the constant juggle of artistic passion, desire, which essentially is controlled by Mother Nature, and the reality of the kids' schedule and the wife's schedule and the family schedule, and
it's a lot.
Putting it all together.
What do you hope that your kids get from your whole approach to all of it? The fact that you're doing it and that you make your living this way, but the choices that you make and what you've chosen to stand behind within it, what do you hope they walk away with?
Oh, wow. in the house, and especially with my kids, we like to, I use the word tenacity a lot. We have a book that they've read about that has that as a main topic, but I'd like to think that they will see that in just the concept of wearing so many hats throughout the day and trying to perform at a high-end level, you know, under each of those hats, and being able to shift gears quickly. And you know, I mean, in this new modern life that I'm living now, I mean, it's drop the kids off at school, chase the light a little bit in the morning, run over to the gallery, open it up, sell some art, meet some amazing collectors, zip home in time to make dinner for my wife to return from the kids with jujitsu to get them in bed. It's a chaotic continuum that we're just trying to.
Are either of your kids interested in photography and in art? And
They're very artistically inclined, and through some fortunate mentorship from some people in some amazing dream professions, professional skiers, snowboarders, artisans, who are ahead of me with parenthood, I've had the ability or the mentorship from them, and essentially they say don't push your true passions on your kids. Let them come to them.
Yeah.
Those passions, and they'll turn into lifelong endeavors as a group. So snowboarding, photography, something I've waited on with the kids until they wanted to do it. They go on some sunrise trips with me, sunset missions, but without a camera. They just come with daddy.
Yeah.
But they're starting to notice the light in the morning at breakfast table and stuff, and maybe have some interest, and they're very artistically inclined.
Very cool. I mean, just your love of the outdoors. You're an Alaskan guide.
Yeah. I spend 3 or 4 weeks a year guiding fly fishing in the bush of Alaska, and maybe some bear workshops from time to time. Yeah.
And that will continue even with all this?
It's a little up in the air. I might do a very, very short run at it this year, or maybe just take 1 year off.
How did that happen? Well, I guess you fly fish. A lot of people fly fish up here. So you loved that.
I mean,
how did it happen in Alaska?
Well, the previous life, I was a fly fishing guide in the summer and a action sport photographer in the snowboarding industry. So I've traveled the world, you know, with the camera in the winter, chasing powder days, and then would go back to Oregon and guide fly fishing. And fly fishermen are always beautiful places, so I was just taking pictures, got my foot in the door in that industry, and still kind of have a few connections. So I get to co-host a TV show for fly fishing. And go on fly fishing photo shoots. But I met the lodge owner at a 4-year-old birthday party from my best friend, whose daughter was turning 4.
See, children are the glue.
Yeah. And he says, "Oh, you got to meet my friend Brian. You guys are going to be best friends in 10 minutes." And 20 minutes after meeting, I was working for a travel agency that is in the industry, and so we booked a trip right then and there at the party for me to go up to his lodge in Alaska, and that was like 7 years ago. And
networking.
He called me to photograph that President Carter trip. I got to photograph and hang out with President Carter for a week up there fishing.
Wow.
And then started doing some custom guides for him.
Right. So you got connected through your previous life, which, you know, a lot of people think, I'm just going to start being a, you know, fine art photographer, but, you know, bring your life with you.
Well, you asked me earlier, what do I tell people, advice? And I think it's in this industry, or many of those niche, smaller industries, I think it's key to just dive all the way in and immerse yourself in that industry, whatever it is. That's been my success in the multiple industries I've worked in, is just a full immersion. And it's, you know, whether it's I know somebody who knows somebody who gets me in, and then, you know, stoking those flames, keeping those
totally makes
relationships.
sense. When in my retreats, which I'm not really doing right now, but one of the key factors, the way that I have always done them, is immersion. And meaning, so like Italy was Venice and the Italian Dolomites. So we're going to immerse in Venice and completely and see things that, you know, we had a guide because he knows the area. We wanted to go all the places that none of the tourists go.
Yeah.
So that it was an immersion of the real Venice and going to a couple of the islands, and then the Dolomites immersion. So that meant staying at a family-run hotel so that we could be more part of, you know, the culture there. And then, you know, we would do these special, like we had a special wine tasting run by a family locally,
Yeah.
grown with local wine, and the owner, did our wine tasting and talked about all the wines so that we could immerse in that. And it wasn't even about taking photographs, we did, but when doing those things, so that when we went out then to photograph, it wasn't just boots on the ground, it was heart and soul in the place, so that it starts to affect you. That's the whole point. It starts to affect you in a certain way. And we always made sure we stayed beautiful places, had beautiful experiences, because the heart and the soul and the creative spirit loves beauty. And it doesn't want to suffer. Like, getting tired is one thing, but then getting rest the next day is important. Or eating well, eating correctly, so that your whole creative, not only spirit, but body, mind, soul, everything can participate and not get left behind because it's back there suffering. And the rest of you is going, come on, suck it up, get with it. Because, there's enough suffering. Just backpacks and all this kind of thing. But when you love it, immerse yourself in it, like you say, it starts to elevate your art because of the immersion. Did I say that right? Did that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that kind of is bringing us back almost full circle to talking about the passion of the small town and the community that we live in, and we are immersed here. So,
right.
So we're passionate about the town, and the fact that the trees right by the river over here are really colorful this year versus previous years, because we know.
Yeah,
because
we're here. So really, that's that message. If I was gonna convey that to someone who's living in a town where, like, oh, I don't know, I want to be somewhere like Tahoe. Well, you're where you are, and what kind of beauty can you find there? Because it's going to elevate your vision. Seeking beauty is inviting awe, and a state of awe is what literally transforms you. It's a completely mind-altering, spirit-altering experience, awe. If you follow what you love and you find those moments that give you goosebumps and make you go, oh my gosh, whatever they are, whether maybe that's a baby being born, maybe that's a puppy or a dog or beautiful scenery or whatever, allowing yourself to have those experiences elevates everything that comes after in your whole life. Wow, I just went on the lecture tour. I have a tendency to do that.
Words of wisdom, though.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, it's evident everywhere in this gallery. So, okay, good. We're still, because Abe has to walk out the door at 11. So we're going to wrap it up.
I think I have to be there by noon. So
Okay,
I've got a little
so
30-minute coffee break window of opportunity.
Good. Okay, so I'm looking in here for questions. Sometimes people pose questions. Anybody got questions? You're more than welcome to pop them in the chat. I will see them and answer them. Okay, so you shoot, what's your gear? People always want to know, whatever.
Mostly running Nikon cameras. Really excited about the Sigma art lenses these days.
Art, what makes them art lenses?
It's their upgraded, like their pro line,
Okay.
essentially. They call them art lenses. But other than their weight, they are unbelievable lenses. They're heavy.
Really good glass tends to weigh a bit.
There's a particular lens they make, and I've been a Hasselblad shooter for years, so I'm familiar with the heavy Carl Zeiss lenses, and Zeiss has just been a standard for so long.
Yeah, it really.
And I always say with the Sigma art glass, they've done two amazing things. It's one, made a lens arguably as good or better than a Zeiss, which is an accomplishment.
Wow.
But also they managed to make a lens definitively heavier than any other Carl Zeiss lens I've carried. So yeah, I mean, they're bricks, but they're worth it.
Yeah. I mean,
so that's been, shifting to those.
Yeah, I mean, I shoot Fujifilm, as y'all know, but going from the X series, which I absolutely love, especially when I'm traveling because it's light and it shoots like a much bigger camera. But carrying GFX and those lenses means.
Well, even that 100 megapixel one, is that the GFX?
Yeah, the GFX 100.
The 100 one. I got to shoot that a few times.
The 100 or the 100S, because the 100S is.
I haven't seen the 100S.
I'll show it to you.
The 100, I was amazed, and the lens is like that 23. I was so excited about how lightweight it was.
Yeah, for a big lens, it is. It really is, and the quality is ridiculous. So so it's this constant with camera gear, this constant battle between weight and high fidelity with the quality and all that kind of thing. Excuse me. Pardon me. So what's next for you? I mean, you just got here, so where do you want this? Like, I hate this question. So let me rephrase it before I even say it. If you could, all right, so 12 years, okay, here's the right parallel. 12 years ago, you said to yourself, wow, if I could have a place like this, right? And it was about this place,
Yeah.
or something, something like it or whatever that would be. And that lit you up. And you somehow, some part of you maintained that all this time, took its, timing, whatever. From where you are now, is there anything, are you just enjoying, oh my God, we made it? The mind tends to want to create the next thing. What kind of lights you up in a similar vein? Not that, the question that I don't want to ask, that I hate, is where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's ridiculous. My mind shuts down when people ask me that question. So much more interesting is, you told us what's exciting, showing up every day in this new space.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do this for a while. And I
Yeah.
think what, as partners, we kind of talked about was having a triple partnership is it allows us to essentially work 2.5 days a week.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which,
And still have it all, not have employees, have it all under one roof.
yeah, so which, and I've also noticed having artists in-house, I mean, is just so much more response when somebody says, are you the artist? And I get to reply yes, versus somebody having to sell me and my art,
Right.
and the experiences that I had. So I think we kind of, at least for myself, with the age of my kids, and I'd kind of like to set this as the next path. Work a couple, 2 or 3 days a week, selling my art, which would then give me enough time to be an active father with kids as they're getting into sports and family time, and still have time to create.
Right.
A couple of days a week.
That's an interesting, how important is it to create? Every day, you just said a couple times a week. Some people say I feel like I'm dying if I don't create every day.
It ebbs and flows for me. Like I just got off of, I'd say, maybe coming out of a long hiatus of not creating. And every time I do these little hiatuses, they're not intentional.
Right, they just happen.
But when they end, I realize how much I miss it and how much more refreshed. And I almost feel as if I almost level up in a sense. If I take 6 months off and just don't shoot much, and then patiently wait for the next opportunity to go out, I often surprise myself, I find.
Yeah.
So just recently, with a few of those images I showed you, I feel like I surprised myself.
Yeah, they were different. They had definitely had that extra.
Yeah.
Something.
And I feel so it's a level up and sometimes a shift in style. It gives me a chance to sort of rest, think about things, and again, as a professional, I always want to be evolving and not rewriting my style, but adjusting it, incorporating
style. Okay, that's interesting. Some people say, I like this. I like myth busting. Some people say that when you have a style, whatever, like when I first started talking about artistic voice, finding your artistic voice, I'd get some pushback on, well, I don't want to identify my artistic voice because then I'm stuck. And you're stuck in a style. And I was like, voice and style are not the same because voices evolve.
Yeah.
And style is
I hope
static.
style does. Well, I think style does too.
Well,
if you're conscious
okay,
about
but think
it.
of it this way. This was the point. And this was actually made by a very artistic photographer. That style, if you have a style and it sells, you can easily get stuck in, oh, now I've always got to sell in that style, that same processing, that same style. Like I shoot HDR or I shoot black and white or whatever. Now I always have to do that. Versus your style evolving, which is then it's hung on the connecting rod of your voice, of your who you are now, who you're evolving to be, what you want to see, what you like. I had a mentor. He used to say, I'm trying to consolidate it, but it had to do with why I photographed or why I created the art. He said it comes down to what you love to see, what you need to see, what you have to see in order to be happy and feel full. That does evolve and that does get reflected in a person's art. And so I have noticed a difference in your expression, shall we say.
Yeah.
What is, if you were to put the feeling, the shift coming back, like you just said, these last images are different. What's the feeling of it that you feel is different?
Well,
you don't even have to explain how you do it, just the kind of like the feeling of it.
Well, I kind of wanted to touch on something you said before, leading into this, was that, you know, you find a style that sells. And
Yeah.
you're like, yes, this is my style. Oftentimes I might have that feeling of like I've accomplished, or I've got a signature, I've got something that works and
Right.
it's selling. But for me, my next thought, maybe I'll take a little break, but my next thought is like, okay, I've checked that style, I'm successful with this style. Now it's on to the next style. Like, let's go learn a new style. Let's not shoot this style, and let's go shoot a different style.
Then do you keep selling that style, keep creating to sell that style? That's when business overlaps.
Exactly, so yes, the overlap, but after a lot of those evolutions,
Right.
I can come on scene and kind of like an actor or an actress, which character am I going to be today at this location?
Interesting.
And I can call up these previous styles that I have perfected, I like to think, that I think would suit that scene. So, you know, the experience of shooting lots of different styles keeps me shooting different styles keeps me motivated, and then over the years that adds a lot of experience and layers of knowledge I can bring to the scene, which is part of the inspiration of, say, photographing places that have been photographed a lot. Say, like where I showed you recently, I was photographing just upstream in town here, pretty heavily photographed area, and I'd seen a lot of good images, but a long hiatus of not shooting, some great light, and just this blank slate, like, let's do something different. Like, this is a new scene, and let's do it differently than I've seen before.
I have a tendency to, my fanciful mind is always like a movie or a conversation. So I'm always having a conversation with where I am, and my gear also, by the way. And I'll stand there and I'll go, what's your story? What do you have to say? And if nothing comes back about the scene, then I'll talk to my lens. Well, how do you see it? What, you know, and it doesn't, I don't necessarily use that voice, but it's like I'm always asking questions, because two things. One, the mind always wants to answer a question. So that's the quickest way to get some creative feedback, is to ask a question that your mind goes, oh, well, I know the answer to that. Even if you didn't think you knew the answer to that, ask the question, and the next second you probably will. So there's that. And so you ask the question of, how can I, you know, what haven't I done? What else is there here? You know, like reboot, refresh, and boom. I have done that a lot this year. For some reason or another, I've had a number of projects in a row, as well as classes that I've taught macro this year. Like, this year's been all about macro, and it's like one thing after the other. I'm going on a project, leaving next week. It's macro.
Right, yeah.
And it's unlikely macro. I'll tell you more about that later. But anyway, and so it starts to, that's interesting. I just had this new thought. Limitations is where I was going to go. Artistic limitations are really good, because it makes you go deeper. So like, my limitation has been the macro, which I love, but you know, maybe the second or third project, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I got to do that again? Now what do I do? What can I do different? And like, what else is there here? And it keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper. The repeating question of the same topic takes you places. But also, having that backlog of having photographed a lot of these areas in your different styles or your different perspectives or what have you, then when you stand there after a hiatus and you've got the reboot, you can almost let that, in a way, forget it, but kind of let it wash through you and go, what now?
Yeah.
And then wait.
Yeah.
And you may not have to wait long. I mean,
I think some of the waiting is, I think some of those hiatus images or times.
Right.
And thinking about this over this conversation, I captured an image in March that honestly just floored me. Like, really? I did that?
Right. That's when you know.
And that kind of was the beginning of the hiatus. I was out because I knew that it's going to be, I don't know when, if ever, I will outdo myself in in a lot of the angles of that, the capture and the location and whatnot. And it maybe sucked a little of the wind out of my sails. Shortly after, it was sort of weird to be so excited and then suddenly be like, oh no, like I'm not gonna better this for a long time. And it kind of put me in a little bit of maybe a hiatus.
Yeah.
And then it came back, fall colors. And,
right.
and,
that makes a lot of sense.
So challenge.
I've done some research on, we know, those of us who live in places like this or seek these kinds of experiences, we understand, and you understand what awe, AWE, is. People think I'm kind of a broken record when I'm always talking about awe, seek awe. Well, the cool thing is we know what that is, and there's a light side and a dark side, because there's the transformational into the land of divinity, but there's also can also be a certain amount of fear in terms of, oh my God, this is bigger than me. And then the personality of the brain comes back in and goes, how will I ever top that? Because in the small us, we won't, but in the greater us, we will. And it's almost like your nervous system and your brain and everything have to develop this sort of quantum ability to go there and when you do, you're not thinking about topping that next one. No. It's just opening yourself to that experience so that more of that can come through you. They've done so many studies now, thank God, because now I don't sound like everybody says. The favorite thing people used to say, she's a really good photographer, but she's a little woo, but a good photographer. And I'm like, wow, okay, thanks. But the woo part now is being scientifically explained, awe, because they've actually now done enough work in the scientific realm, psychoscientific, to determine what awe actually does to the nervous system, to the brain function, to the sense of connectedness with everything, altruism, societal, let's all get along and being positive and helping each other and all this kind of thing. But it's really interesting when they drill it down into literally the brain waves, the way the mind works, the way that, empirically, and it has this huge effect through many, many systems. Artistically speaking, that I would bet money is the state you were in when you took that photo.
Oh yeah, very Zen-like of sort, just in the moment, People ask, well, what were you doing? What were you shooting? Honestly, I don't remember. I was shooting for 3 hours nonstop in a chaotic vision to get it done. Yeah. And then I went to sleep. I woke up and just looked at my images and said, I think I got it. And I went home a day early. Yeah. And that's what. So that was one of those images that was a passion project that's turning into a good business decision. That the image was coming.
Is that image here?
Yeah, the Yosemite image downstairs.
We might have to walk. I was going to walk you through at the end of this, walk you through the gallery. Let's remember to point that one out.
Yeah, the image I titled Enchanted. I refer to that as my latest master image. There's a handful in the portfolio that, would be like my Mona Lisas. Images that I don't think I'll recreate ever again.
And that's the thing about being truly in the moment. You never will create that again, because the only way to create like that is to be in the moment the next time, and then it's completely different. Yeah. Every moment, every and awe, like I know a lot of people go, what do I do? How can I be more in the moment? How do I get more there? And I'm like, seek awe. What do you love? Follow that line, because because awe just goes bam. It goes, here you go, bam! Yeah. Now you're present.
It's just happening.
It's just happening, and you can't control it, but you can be willing. There is a certain, what am I trying to say? There's a certain cooperation with that, and a certain asking for it. You have to ask, for things. So you ask for it, however you do, and be open to it, and be willing to be transported, because it is unnerving. It can be unnerving. Yeah. You almost have to develop a muscle for it.
I kind of almost think of it as like stepping back, or just sort of zooming out a little bit, in the sense of just like not being quite so hyper focused. It's a little more of like just letting the brakes go and following that emotion, that awe.
And we all do it different, because I was a figure skater and a dancer and a performer, so for me it's all and then it happens and I stand there and I cry. I was actually videoed in that state, bawling in Slovenia in my Smug Mug film. It was really embarrassing. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna look really stupid. And I kind of did, but I couldn't help it, because I was just like, oh, we're walking into this area. And then all of a sudden it was like, it just bowled me over.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just started bawling. I just couldn't, I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, those are like kind of the pinnacle of what we do from
Yeah.
time to time. You get those moments.
Right.
Just like, yeah.
I think that's the driving force more than anything, because I think it lives in nature. I think that's the place people go, is nature. You can find it anywhere, but that's one of the really cool things I think about this gallery, is that you both, all three of you, actually photograph from that point of view. So consequently, it's filled with that, with the evidence of that everywhere, which is pretty cool. I think it's, so anybody got questions? So Cameron, I had that shooting close-up flowers, yes, one evening in the garden. Didn't realize the time had gone by. See, you slip into the in-between place and you know you're in the zone.
Yeah.
That's the zone. It can be quiet and simple, and like you emerge from the other side going, what just happened? Or it can be like, you know, how it was for me in Slovenia.
I refer to it as a zone, like in the zone, or in a kind of a Zen state,
Right?
Where you just, everything is connected, flowing, and you're just moving off of the reacting to the light, preemptively.
I'm just remembering that in Slovenia. I'm like, oh, that was so awesome. So any other questions or comments? I'm going to walk us through the gallery so I can show you the image that he's talking about, but also so you can see a little bit, even though it's like crazy vertical mode, see a little bit of what it looks like. I have walked you through before, but the last time I tried to do it, they didn't have Wi-Fi set up. So I could only get so far before the connection was lost. So now I'm going to do a little bit more. So that's what we're going to do right now. I have to get this out of the doobie-doo here. Sorry about all the creaking noise. I'm going to tripod, pull this out. Now I'm going to flip it around. I will still be wait, where's my flipper? Where's my flipper?
In the bottom sometimes.
I know. What happened to it?
You've been on for so long, it doesn't let you flip it around.
Oh my God. Is
Hit
it
the camera.
this? Nope, that's invite to join. That's
It's
hit
the
the
little camera.
Really, the camera?
No.
Nope. Oh my God, my
We don't
little
know
flippy thing is gone. That's insane. You know, Instagram is just so bizarre sometimes.
Yeah, maybe you can't flip it around in the middle.
Oh, there it is. There's the flippy.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Look at that.
Had to get onto another screen. So this is the print we were sitting in front of. Thunderstruck. Just incredible.
Probably my most awarded image, definitely a bestseller. We kind of joked that we saved one of the best images for last in the gallery, being upstairs on the back wall.
Yeah, exactly.
And so many times, you send people upstairs and they come back down. That picture with the lightning and the rainbow, oh my gosh.
I know, it is.
Up the stairs we go for a little story.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And see, the other thing about shooting from this point of view is you always have a story, which, art is a story.
Yep.
It's like a big long love letter to whatever and whomever you create the art for. So I'm just going to kind of do the slow pan if there's anything you want to particularly mention.
I just can point out this is a personal favorite, where combination of just passion, but then it's been a good business decision.
This one?
Is this image here, Neverland, where I was able to incorporate a drone a long time ago, before it was nearly as popular, with light painting. And again, just what was exciting for me at that time was perfecting this new light painting technique at night with drones, and merging that daytime lighting with a nighttime exposure.
Right.
And this is similar to the Yosemite image. I felt a master image in this concept of drone light painting, where after this kind of checked it off my list, like, okay, I've got that in the tool
I remember
belt.
You working on that and seeing, the stories of it and seeing the results of it, and I'm like, God bless you. That is just so much work and so much tech.
At least a dozen nights of failure over a 2 or 3 year time period of drones crashing trees in the lakes, lights not working. So
I'm just going to do a little slow pan of this one because it was
definitely an image I'm very proud of.
Yeah, that is some technical, visionary, creative, the perfect blend of all those things coming together. Phenomenal. And of course, this space is beautiful. And of course, they have this artist,
Andy Klein.
yeah, Andy Klein, and his inspiration of Tahoe and Tahoe blue and the reclaimed wood of the area. And is it reclaimed?
It is, yep. Most of it's reclaimed.
Yeah, I thought it was saying.
Really excited about that collaborative frame that he and I worked on.
Yeah, I'm gonna
together
go
on
show.
that
We're gonna
image
go downstairs and show you that.
Alpenglow, another iconic
Yeah.
image from my older portfolio that's
So this
very
is
popular.
when you were shooting always really super wide.
And this is a 2014 capture, so early in the Astro
Yeah.
kind of game, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like Astro started, 2010,
Yeah.
11-ish.
Ish. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I have to walk, talk, and chew gum here.
This has been a popular image and very outside of my usual style.
Right.
But
That'd be
similar
super.
deal. I have been drawn to that particular tree for years at a popular photo location, and it backs up against a really big pine tree. So I'd always seen this contrast of the white and the black.
Yeah.
And tried to capture it over and over and over again. Never could get it the way I had envisioned until, going again outside of my usual style. I put this into Photoshop and just underexposed or blacked out
Yeah.
everything.
Right. Isn't that
I
awesome?
wasn't able to do it in camera, but it was adamant that I needed this image like in the book.
Right. Good for you. That's how it goes. That's how the creativity works.
So this is that Andy Klein frame that he built for my emerald gold image. I gave him a 20 by 30 print and said, choose your colors. We worked with the design, but I let him decide what colors, and he just matched these blues so perfectly to the reflections in the Emerald Bay and the clouds.
Andy doesn't typically do frames, so this was
This is
a
the
really
first time he's done one. It's a collaborative that we hope to do a handful more.
yeah,
Reserve them
absolutely
for my most
stunning.
exclusive images.
Fantastic. And here's right in front of it is one of Andy's tables.
Yeah, which is starting to glow in the light they do. So
Yeah.
cool.
So he hasn't got all this stuff goes outside, but they're not open yet. We're doing a pre-open.
Here's
Okay,
Enchanted
so here's
from
the,
Yosemite. Yeah, this was a fun one.
so just do the quick thumbnail. There's a few people came in.
So my latest master image captured in March of this last year in 2021 from an unnamed ridge. If you've been to Yosemite, if you've hiked the Upper Falls Trail, I am literally, as you can see, on the edge
Yeah.
of that 2,000-foot cliff that is to your hiker's left.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And photographer who lives in the area, RJ Franklin, actually was the first photographer I saw who captured an image from this area. And the minute I saw his image, that was the beginning of the inspiration to capture this.
That is so incredible. And it's signed, which is super good. That is so cool.
I really find, like unknown was, the plan was moonrise, Milky Way. Unknown to me was the fact that I would get that what's called this is not a moon bow, it's a moon dog, because it's facing the moon.
Oh, really?
A moon bow is from over the shoulder, like a rainbow,
I didn't know that.
which is a 48-degree angle of refraction. Apparently, a moon dog is always a 22.5-degree angle of refraction or circular when
Wow.
you're looking at the light.
So much to know.
I learn a lot about weather and science after image capture.
Yeah.
Basically, like why does the guy look like this? What was happening? And then I'll research it afterwards. And
Interesting.
find out that way.
It's just always so much to learn and know, and that's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just going to give you the slow
Doug
pan.
DeVore's incredible image of Truckee.
So our other partner who's not here at the moment, yeah, this is downtown Truckee. That's an incredible capture.
Yeah, been one of our best sellers, and just as with much of Doug's work, he just has this uncanny ability of pulling out a very unique and original image from a heavily photographed area.
Yeah. It's just that innocent, fresh eyes kind of thing. And then they've got the classic, Eagle Falls up here and all the old cameras, and I love that. I got all my old
This is
cameras
my
too.
house, but it was really fun last weekend. My father came to visit the gallery from Oregon, but this was his old house display. He photographed me when I was a baby with this camera, and then gave it to me probably 15 years ago when I started pursuing more of the landscape work specifically.
Yeah.
So
That's phenomenal.
So he was excited to see it up on the shelf.
Well, I'm going to flip this around and get my menu back again. What happens? It just disappears. And the only way, nope, that's not it, is to, and it appeared for no good reason. And where did it go again? I just don't, there it is. All right, there we are. So, from Alpenglow Gallery in Truckee, California, I'm going to let Abe go because he's got to go pick up his kids.
Yeah, I got to put the dad hat on now. So,
Yeah,
like we were saying, lots of different hats throughout the day.
Yeah,
so.
but it just enriches everything.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do the get us there. Isn't
Well,
that
thank you
gorgeous?
so much for having me.
Absolutely.
So it's always fun having a good chat with you.
I always love it when people say that because I always say, your mama had you. I just had you on my show. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed a little glimpse into this marvelous artist and friend of mine and the gallery. And I will be back next week, and then I'm going to be taking a hiatus for 2 weeks. So, yeah, I'm super excited. So anyway, hope you guys are doing well. Have a fantastic weekend. Love ya. Mean it. Talk to you all really soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Wow, wiggle, wiggle.